Tego, you were on a panel this week for the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties Group, which is, the commercial brokers, basically.
Commercial broker,
And
commercial real estate investment folks, and pretty good.
So it was a really interesting presentation, and unfortunately it was on Zoom, but fortunately it was on Zoom because myself and many others who wouldn't normally attend their monthly get-togethers got to listen in. And I know a lot of us residential realtors and people listened, and really interesting things. If you want to give us a few bullets of some of the top takeaways from that.
So Stephen Hamway did an article. He put it out Thursday afternoon after the
on the Albuquerque
Journal? In the Albuquerque Journal, excuse me. Yes, Thursday afternoon, and he pulled a couple snippets out of there. It's really I have to give reporters. It's difficult because we had an hour and a half worth of content there. And he had to, put together a short little article, and he pulled out a couple snippets. One of the things, Kathy Colvin's one of our colleagues. She's this year's Southwest MLS board president. I'm on the MLS board here too, but she said something that he really picked up on, and it's like she said we need to think and realize that Albuquerque has been discovered by a lot of the country.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Tracy?
I would say yes. There's still so many people that don't know about New Mexico, though. But, are we seeing more people from out of state coming to New Mexico? I don't know if it's a lot more, but yes.
Yeah.
And it seems like when people ask me why, where are they coming from and who are they, a lot of them are people who have lived here before, have relatives here and have visited, or had been stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base at some point, right? But, do we have others? Yes. Do we have somebody who works at Google in San Francisco that decided to move here? Yes. Do we have people who can work from home?
Is it this mass influx? No.
No, it's not a mass influx. And honestly, a lot of our home buyers are people who live here that are changing and want a bigger house, a smaller house, a different part of town, a new home instead of an older home.
It's household formation, also known as first-time buyers.
A lot of first-time buyers.
That are local. One of the quotes that got picked up that I said is that $200,000 houses are kind of becoming extinct in our market.
Extinct, yeah.
In the sense that whatever it was 10, 15 years ago, I guess it was probably more like 15 years ago, we used to have sub $100,000 houses all over the place.
Tego, I remember a Christmas Eve.
Yep.
I had a buyer desperate to find a house.
Yep.
And that was that Christmas Eve.
I remember that. Yes.
And I actually showed 3 different clients' houses that day. And Christmas Eve was at our house.
Yep.
We were serving most of the food and making most of the food. They wanted under $100,000, and they needed a house right away, and they were off, and they needed to go look at houses. And I remember saying to Tego, I don't think I can find anything under $100,000 that qualifies for a loan. That was at least 15 years ago.
Yeah, so
right?
Okay, it's probably more like 20 years ago. You're right.
So we found him a house, right? But today, finding him a $200,000 that qualifies for the type of loan that's not a manufactured home, that's not in Moriarty or Belen, you have to go a long ways out to get something today.
Well, and the I don't like this term, but the reality is, if you're looking for a $200,000 house that's newer and, pretty good condition, you're going to be mainly focusing on the southwest and maybe the southeast part of Albuquerque, but
or
primarily
Edgewood
the southeast.
Or some parts of Las Lunas that are further out.
I'm thinking the tight-end metro Albuquerque,
right.
But definitely Las Lunas for sure. Yeah.
So last week, I'm thinking, what day is today? Was it this week or last week?
It all blur.
I showed houses to somebody who wanted to stay in that 175 range.
Yep.
And we went and looked at a house that came on the market in Rio Rancho, west of Unser, north of Southern. So, southwest Rio Rancho, good area right by the Walmart. And we got there within 4 hours of it coming on the market and looked at it. I had an offer in that night, so within 6 hours of it going on the market, and it was an above list price offer with an escalation clause up higher than that. It was a conventional buyer with 20% down, Very nice offer.
Solid buyer.
Very solid buyer. No closing costs, nothing on the seller that the buyer could take on. And by the next morning, there was many offers, and mine wasn't selected. And I'm pretty good at being competitive, but my client drew the line and said, this is what it's worth to me.
Yep.
And so the escalation clause, which was significantly above the 175,
can
was
you,
not selected.
You know, that term escalation clause came up in our presentation on Thursday as well.
I got way off of your presentation.
No, that's okay, because I think we right in the business, we've got this lingo that we throw around, and you say escalation clause, and people are like, I don't know what that means. So what is an escalation clause? And let me just say, we're seeing it all the time right now.
Yeah, it generally, you're not going to be able to be the one whose offer is selected unless you have an escalation clause, or unless you just offer a flat rate that's significantly above list price, right?
But what does it mean?
An escalation clause means I'll pay X dollars over the next highest offer up to a certain price. So I will pay up to a certain price, but if the other offer is lower, I'll just pay a little above that other offer.
So you make an offer at a certain price. So let's just use example. It's $200,000. Probably not a great example. How about $250,000? But I'll put an escalation clause that says I'll pay $1,000 over any other offer higher up to $225.
Or you said 200.
Well,
no, 250.
260.
260.
You guys get the point, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a way to escalate their offer, but there is a ceiling on that as well.
Right. Well, there doesn't have to be.
True.
But typically we see a ceiling on it.
We've seen some very, very high escalation clauses.
We saw one that was $101,000. They would pay more up to $101,000 over anybody else's offer. Obviously, that was a luxury home price. That wasn't a $200,000 house.
No.
So, Tego, back to your presentation.
So back to there's one other thing that jumped out, and I was like going, I'm going to get hate mail and calls on this one.
Yeah. Call Tego.
Call me. Well, at one point, again, you take one sentence out of a hour and a half presentation. I said we could actually use a little bit of a slowdown in the Albuquerque market. And in context, what I'm talking about, we were having a really good conversation, or at least the narrative was around affordability, or not housing affordability, but just affordable housing. And that, again, that whole 200, they're going away. There's not going to, prices are going to continue to get pushed up. And my point was, a little bit of a slowdown would probably be a good thing to slow down this really fast pace of market appreciation. So.
Yeah. So I think it was in context. One of the things you just mentioned is something else you talked about, which was home affordability versus affordable homes.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't mix those two things up.
That's two different things, because we know that homes in Albuquerque are still way more affordable than almost any market around us. You go to Tucson or Phoenix or Denver,
Colorado Springs, San Antonio.
You cannot buy a house for what you can buy it here. Plus, what people earn, their income-wise, versus how much they need to spend monthly for affordability.
Yep.
Is at an all-time low.
There's one exception to that, and that's El Paso. El Paso does have better affordability, home affordability numbers than our market. Otherwise, we're for a larger metropolitan area in the Southwest, we're still very, very strong.